Demon Knights number 4, written by Paul Cornell, art by Diogenes Nevis and Michael Choi. Last issue we left off with the Horde approaching, and they took one of the little girls who was going to go get some help, and they cut off her head. And that was really messed up. This issue going to be a little bit fast to go through because it is literally just a Shining Knight intro. It's like, hey, you want to know what Shining Knight's up about? Cool. So we pick up. Shining Knight is shouting over the fence, I guess you want to call it, the gate. Like, how dare you? You're just a child. You will pay for this. I will kill every single one. And then Shining Knight just basically falls into a seizure. I forget the name of the other woman, but she catches her and is just like, oh, what's wrong with you, Shining Knight? And Shining Knight's like, oh, it's him. And then we see this whole vision quest thing of Merlin in this blank white space. And it's like, oh, I am Merlin. I live backwards. Blah, blah, blah. Anything. Understand this, Shining Knight. Your quest is for the Holy Grail. I'm not kidding. That is all a quest for the Holy Grail. And Shining Knight says, yes, it is. So then they say, okay, the Holy Grail, it was the grail that held Jesus' blood at the last dinner, and then, it was whatever. It is a record of everything. It is which can never be had. And then, they show the grail breaking, but it's not the real grail. I don't know. Then we see Shining Knight's origin. They were a young squire who was killed at the fall of Camelot, and they got a giant just spear through the chest. And Merlin came up and was like, oh, you know what? You've got something inside you. In your dead corpse. So I'm going to do this cool thing for you. And he pulls out the Grail and has them drink from it, which apparently gives Shining Knight eternal life. Comes back. Everyone around is already dead. Merlin is already on his way, and Shining Knight just rips out the spear and then begins their quest. Just not even knowing what they were looking for. Along the way, they got a Pegasus, because that's just what they do. At one point, the Pegasus needed to feed in order to save its life. Shining Knight offered up their blood and therefore made the Pegasus also live super long because, sure. At some point, they slept for long periods of time, including centuries, underneath the roots of the tree around which the world turns. I don't know if that's metaphorical or not, but then they had their first vision, which is this. This is their first vision, but this is also the other visions, because all the visions are happening at the same time, I guess. So anyway, they're like, oh, also your comrades are trying to get to you. And then we cut that back to the battlefield. Vandal Savage is like, hey, wakey, everyone wakes up. Jason Blood comes forward and is like, hey, are you alright? And Shining Knight just barely lets out the little thing of Merlin, which of course Jason Blood has ties to, considering Merlin's the one that bound the demon to him. So he's like, hey, you talking to Merlin? Tell him to free me from my curse. Tell him to show his face. I'm gonna beat him up. What are you talking about in there? So then they get back to the vision quest and they're like, okay, so anyway, you alone can find the Grail because it's lost. And you have to fight your own inner demons and what have you, but you will find great sorrow and you will lose everyone you love, but you will be able to get to the Grail. Cool? Do you understand your quest? And Shining Knight's like, yep, sounds great. And then they show, all right, let me show you the last place I had the Grail, so that way you at least know where to begin looking. And there was some sort of storm or something, some magical lightning or whatever. And I don't even, I've read this page 3 times trying to figure out, and I genuinely can't figure out. He was just divine to do this, where he took the Grail he put the Grail into a container and then threw it into a volcano, down into some lava. And he's like, I was confident that I could find it within a decade or two. Oops. That's all it was. It just didn't work out. And he's like, all right, so now I need you to find the Grail. Your greatest tests are about to begin. But you will not be alone. You will have your friends, and you will be known as... And Shining Knight shoots awake and claims the Demon Knights. So, hey, title. We finally got there. And so they're just like, hey, so you woke up and said Demon Knights. Is that supposed to be our team name? And he's like, I don't know. Sure, I guess. It was just in the vision that I had. Meanwhile, they cut to a vision that the questing queen was also having for the Grail as well. And she's like, I had that vision again. I have to continue looking for the Grail. So maybe the questing queen had the same vision? It's a little unclear. So anyway, this all happened very quickly, apparently. The horde outside is still holding up the head of the killed child. And then the horsewoman comes up, just shoots like 3 arrows into this guy's hand and head, shoots him dead. Exaristos is like, well done, horsewoman. You are truly they will pay for their crimes and we will have our moment. And then horsewoman just turns around and shoots an arrow into Exaristos. And that's where we leave off the issue, with her stomach just exploding out blood. If the entire thing of Demon Knights is looking for the Holy Grail, or maybe looking for Merlin, I'm okay with this issue. If this is the mission statement for, okay, when we're done with this arc, this is what the book is about, I'm good with this issue, because it takes a long time to set it up, and it's like, all right, we never have to, you've gotten everything you need. We know where we're going for the Grail, where to start. We have the entire backstory on it. I'm good with it. But if this is literally just a one arc thing, and maybe not even like a full 6 issues, if this is just something where it's like, and then we gave up on the Grail, and then the Grail was inside us all along, it's actually friendship or whatever, I'm going to be so pissed off at this issue, because just feels like such a waste. Nothing happened. Character development for Shining Knight, okay, but that didn't need to be the entire issue. So if this was back, and again, I can't rate well enough off of that, so I'm going to assume that this is going to be the mission statement for the book moving forward. And with that assumption, I'm going to give this a 7. I still wish it did a little bit more of forwarding the plot outside the vision, but if we needed to have this happen, then it was a good way to do it, where it's all just one big vision quest. I'm fine with that. The art, also fantastic the whole way through. Never had any complaints about any of that. So yeah, 7. I really hope that we actually do focus on the Grail, though, because otherwise I'm going to be really pissed.